The economy shrank, first time in 3 years. People are pointing to the tariff policy. There are people looking at their 401ks that are worried. What do you tell them? Is this going to work?
So the first thing is,
we'll figure out what that is in a minute. Yesterday, that was Bret Baier asking Vice President JD Vance why the economy is shrinking under the Trump administration. Unsurprisingly, Vance immediately passed the buck, and we will play that portion of the clip for you in just a moment. But Cenk, I guess the question for you is, do you think the Trump administration will be able to play the blame game for long, or how much longer, or at all? Maybe people aren't buying it at all.
Yeah, look, I think he's gonna get caught, but we're asking people at tyt.com to vote on it. We'll have the results of that on the show. Of course, shows live 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern every day on YouTube. And so this is what I mean by getting caught. Like, they could try to play these blame games, and who they're gonna blame is hilarious. The reaction is literally hilarious. People laughing out loud at what an absurd thing JD Vance said Trump is saying about whose fault it is. But I do think he's gonna get caught, because unfortunately, I think the economy is gonna get in much worse shape very soon. And when it does, well, then people are not gonna like the memes and the trolling and all that stuff nearly as much as they did before, for the folks who did like it. So I think they're in a world of trouble here, and their BS excuses are not going to play well for them. But let's find out what those excuses were. Let's find out what the reaction was, Sharon.
All right, well, speaking of BS, here is the vice president's answer with Bret Baier.
So the first thing is, when you talk about the economy, this is Joe Biden's economy, and we inherited $2 trillion of debt, the highest peacetime deficits in American history, a $1.2 trillion trade deficit, which fundamentally means we're not making enough of our own stuff. And the president came in and he said, this is not always going to be easy. It would have been very easy for Donald Trump to do what administrations past have done, which is borrow a lot of money and continue fueling the national debt. He said, no, we need a reset.
This is the administration's version of a reset, apparently. Yesterday, CNBC's Steve Leisman stated that Wall Street is mocking President Donald Trump behind his back for blaming the economy on Joe Biden. Let's watch that.
Well, he tried yesterday to blame the stock market on Biden, and I think there was a lot of laughter around Wall Street. I think on that one, I think that people pretty squarely put this on the shoulders of President Trump.
There you have it. Donald Trump doesn't seem like he wants to take responsibility for anything anytime soon. The economy chief among them. In fact, he stated that Joe Biden is also to blame for whatever happens next quarter too. Watch.
He came in on January 20th. So this is Biden. And you could even say the next quarter is sort of Biden, because it doesn't just happen on a daily or an hourly basis.
So Donald Trump at that cabinet meeting earlier this week, he's been playing this game for some time now. January last year, Trump stated emphatically that stock market was doing well because he was going to win the election. That's the only reason. And you can see the Truth Social posts. This is the Trump stock market because my polls against Biden are so good that investors are projecting that I will win, and that will drive the market up. Now, what do you say? April of last year, it was Biden's stock market again. Okay, you see that stock market is in a sense crashing. The numbers are very bad. This is Bidenomics, Trump said at the time. And then in May, it was Trump's stock market again. Very difficult to keep track of it. There are many people that are saying that the only reason the stock market is high is because I am leading in all of the polls. And if I don't win, we will have a crash, all caps, similar proportions to 1929. That is a very ironic one. That one, not aging well at all. That lasted until August, when it was Biden and Kamala Harris's stock market. And you see the proof of performance here with the Truth Social post. Stock market's crashing. I told you so. Kamala doesn't have a clue. Biden is sound asleep. So you get the idea, the back and forth. Trump clearly thinks that he can avoid any responsibility for the economy, but Ben Shapiro poured cold water on that idea this week. Look.
They made $1 trillion with Biden, $1 trillion, even $1.1 trillion with Biden selling us stuff. Much of it we don't need. Somebody said, oh, the shelves are going to be open. Well, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30, and maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally.
Okay, that is not a dog that is going to hunt in any sort of future election for Republicans. Maybe they won't have $30 for kids. Maybe they will have 2, and maybe they'll cost more. No biggie. That is a let them eat cake approach to politics. It would be bad if a Democrat said it. It'd be bad if a Republican said it. And the reality is that when Americans feel that their choices in the market are constrained, when they have to pay more for their kids' toys, when they are told that it's not a big deal if their kid has to have fewer toys because of inflation, they are not going to feel the same way that President Trump just articulated. That is a tremendous commercial for Democrats. President Trump should be avoiding language like that, obviously.
He knows better. Dave Portnoy not having it either. You can look at his posts on social media. What's that old expression? Don't down my back and tell me it's raining. That applies here. Stock market is a direct reflection of Trump's first 100 days in office. Doesn't mean it won't get better and that we don't need to be patient, but this is his market, not Biden's. I would have liked to see that a little bit stronger. Cenk, we'll start with you and recall that there was that commencement speech that Trump gave last night, Alabama. That was wacky too, but weigh in here on this back and forth. It kind of makes you dizzy as much as, he actually says it like we're all stupid, or maybe he actually believes it.
Yeah, well, it's hard to know what goes on in that orange mind. All right, so 2 quick things here. One, I thought that no right winger would ever break with Trump. Oh, interesting. There's Ben Shapiro, there's Dave Portnoy, the entire Patrick Bet-David crew gave him about a C- the other day at the 100-day mark. So apparently a lot of people breaking in. And when do they break with him? Oh, when it affects their financial interests. That makes sense, right? So they're not happy with what he's done to all of their, and remember, a lot of the right-wing media is super rich. So when he crashes the market, it costs them millions of dollars. Portnoy complained about how it cost him $20 million. Patrick Bet-David complained about how it was an untold sum of money, which seemed fairly gigantic. So that's why they're agitated and they're like, yeah, spare me, okay? It's not Biden's, it's yours. But Sharon, as you were reading it, I tracked it. This is pre-election. It's Biden's economy / market, then Trump's, then Biden, then Trump, then Biden Kamala, then he gets into office, then Trump, then Biden. Come on. Like if you're a Trump supporter, so which one is it? You're not gonna defend this, are you? Because that's comical.
Yeah, it's whenever you see any right-wing commentators say things like, well, Trump should do this or Trump shouldn't do that, it's just not going anywhere. Donald Trump does whatever he wants in the moment. And there's usually no plan. There's a general agenda, but there's no real plan. He just wakes up and plays golf and does whatever he feels like at any given moment, like I said. And as you pointed out before, and as Ben Shapiro pointed out in that clip, people can't ignore being broke. You can't ignore not being able to afford to pay your bills. You can't ignore your 401k dipping. You can't ignore just a general sense of uncertainty. That's one of the things that drives the people the farthest into depression, despair, anxiety, is just feeling uncertain of next month or next week. So the worse the economy gets, like people aren't going to be like, oh yeah, I love Trump's antics. The show's over. It's 3 years and 8 months or something like that left, and it's probably just going to keep going downhill from here.
He was given a speech at University of Alabama that Sharon referred to a little while ago. And so we've been asking all day on our website, tyt.com, is Donald Trump gonna get caught? And what I mean by that is, look, when the economy crashes, to Jackson's point, if you're broke, then you don't really care about woke or not woke anymore. You're more worried about broke or not broke, right? And so all the memes and the dancing and all that stuff that seemed fun and the dark Brandon and whatever, not as much fun when you realize, oh, our guy's a jackass and he made billions of dollars off the Saudis and Qataris and off of his stupid meme coin, et cetera. And what do we get? We got stuck with the goddamn bill, right? And so I don't think it's gonna work out. And so now he of course thinks he's invincible because, as Jackson explained earlier in the show, he's Teflon Don. Nothing's landed on him. He's led a charmed life. That no matter how many laws he broke, no matter how stupid he was, no matter how many bankruptcies he had, he just kept getting the next thing handed to him and handed it to him, etc. Right? So, but he's taunting some people here. This is classic Trump taunts. But people are gonna remember this. For us, the little guys, it's not, we could only do so much. We could vote, right? But some of the people he's taunting here are gonna, my prediction is they're gonna come back and say, oh, is that right? Okay, when he loses all of his popularity because he broke the economy, I think they're gonna sing a different tune.
I think you're exactly right. I also think when Jackson used the word uncertainty, it's like your life may not be great, but there's expectations there. You know what you're dealing with, you know what you don't have, what you will have, but the expectations here are just wild and all over the place. And so it's very difficult to sustain any kind of warm feelings for someone when they're treating you this way. This is like an abusive relationship. And perhaps his MAGA loyalists will feel like they're in one and wake up.
Let's show the clip from Alabama last night so that people can see what we're talking about. Let's watch.
You have to have the right vision. If you look at some of these internet people, I know so many of them. Elon is so terrific, but I know now all of them, they all hated me in my first term, and now they're kissing my ass, do you know? It's true, all of them. It's true.
God, he loves to rub it in people's faces. And when you're in the opposition, that might work. And when you're riding high, that might work. But Jackson, my sense is that if I'm right and he gets caught and he dips in his popularity and the politicians turn against him, etc., man, people are gonna come back and look for payback, especially those rich guys that he keeps making fun of.
Yeah, I've always thought that Donald Trump at some point was gonna become the scapegoat for the entire right wing in America. Anything that has gone wrong, anything that will go wrong from now on is just gonna be thrown onto Trump because it's really his own karma at the end of the day. It's what he does to everybody else. And he made it back into the White House, so people still have a need for him to use him, but he's just so unstable. And he's on track to possibly be the most unpopular, hated president in American history because we're barely 100 days in, and look at where he's at now. And as I point out a lot, it's not even the incompetence. Well, it is the incompetence that makes him so dangerous, but even more so, he doesn't care. That man does not care about the job. So he's not going to do a good job at it. It's just not going to happen.
I like to make note of my predictions, but let's make a note of Jackson's prediction there, because I think that's actually an excellent prediction because it already happened once before, and ironically, Trump did it to Bush. They all turned around and were like, it was all Bush's fault, right? Oh yeah, Iraq war, we never meant it. Oh, the giant tax cuts for the rich and corporations, we never meant it. It's that created giant deficits and crashed the economy. No, it wasn't Republicans. It wasn't Republicans. It was just George W. Bush. I think Jackson's right. They're gonna do the same exact thing for Trump. Oh, I can't believe he did giant tax cuts and crashed the economy. Oh, it was all Trump. No, it's Republicans that do it every time. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.